Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Bill Letson, and his near-death experience was in 1994, and he has an amazing story to share with us. So, hi, Bill.
Hi, Peggy. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming, and we're going to have a good conversation. So, you go right ahead and start us
So,
out.
you wanted me to start? I'll start with my NDE. Okay, I was a fireman. I worked for Santa Barbara County Fire for 30 years, and I worked for the Forest Service and all that. And in 1994, I was working at Station 11 on a paramedic engine, and there was a flu epidemic going on in Santa Barbara, in Goleta, and we responded to it. And there's a really sick woman there, and she'd been cooped up in the house. And we got in. I was with a paramedic and a captain. I was an engineer, and I was another firefighter. And we just kind of, went to work on her. And my job was to get a mask on her, O2 mask on her. And I climbed across the bed, and she was circling the drain. She was really ill. And
Circling the drain. I
so
can
yeah, that's a
imagine what
medical
that
term.
means. She was a
Yeah,
goner.
she was in trouble, and we had to, it's usually when we come in at, well, I'm retired now, but I've been retired for 13, 14 years. But you come in the house, and if it's serious, you just start throwing furniture, rolling chairs back, and making room, so medics can get their stuff out. And it's kind of like a trigger, and this was a trigger. It was like, okay, we got to somebody get the windows open, get some air in here, somebody get a mask on her. And so I was going for the O2. And I climbed across her, and I took in a deep breath just as she exhaled. And I took it right, I felt it go right in. And it was a really powerful um, flu. And I felt it later that day. And 2 days later, I was really sick, deathly sick. Um, and so much so that, you were throwing up, and fluids were going the other way. And you didn't I didn't have much fluids left. I remember I got up to go to the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and I was super gaunt. I was like
So
a
now you were
skeleton. I
circling the
was real
drain.
dark. Yeah, I was circling the drain. And I took my own pulse, and it was I couldn't get a pulse on my wrist, a radial pulse. And it was so I knew my blood pressure was below 80, and I wasn't going to be conscious or upright much longer. And I called my niece, and she was 5 years old, and she called 911. The guys came, my buddies came, and they put a couple of IVs in me, got me in an ambulance, got me to the hospital. And um, I left something out, and this is, I don't know how many people would enjoy this, but it was that week before this happened. I had this intuitive thing. It was like a whisper. It came in from the left and on the rear, and it was and the words were the same. It was like, you need to be ready. You need to get ready. And it wasn't a doomsday thing or anything. It was just, there's going to be a change, and you need to be ready for that change. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just, a new direction. And I heeded that. I listened to it because it was absolutely real. And so I did all these nice things for my wife, took her to dinner, took all the dogs out, long runs, and hugged them in the woods, and told them how much I loved them, and took my nieces, I took them to the movies and stuff. And I was very sentimental about my life at that time. I was probably 38 years old. And I was very grateful and sentimental, and just loved all of it. It was, it was a wonderful life. And it was like that was all coming forward. So back to where we were. I was rolled into the emergency room, and really ill. And they put me in a room. All the rooms were full, and the place was full of people. This flu was really powerful, and lots of people were suffering. The emergency room was overwhelmed, just like what I experienced when I was on duty. It was, they had a lot of people coming in often. And they put me in a room and I had a couple of bags. I got a couple of liters of fluids, to restore what was lost. That was basically what it was. I was severely dehydrated and there wasn't much fluid left in order to keep a good blood pressure. There wasn't a lot of volume, so that wasn't, you couldn't pump the blood around, and I wasn't getting a lot of perfusion, and so that's why things were getting pretty bad. So anyway, I was there. They gave me a couple of bags. I think I was on my third IV, and I've been there half an hour or so. And the nurse came in and said, "We're giving everybody, we're overwhelmed. We're giving everybody in here the same medicine. We're giving you this synthetic morphine called Nubane." And you're shaking your head. You have nursing experience.
No, I don't, but I can just see where this is going.
It happens, I tell this story and people write to me and they say, this happens so much. And it's not, it's not anybody's fault. It's just they're trying to do their best with circumstance. But yeah, she gave me this Nubane, and pushed it right in. Usually you count these things down, with over 2 minutes, just from watching the medics and stuff. And there was another medicine in there for nausea, and the Nubane was for pain. And I didn't have really either of those. And I said, I think I'm fine. I'm going to get dressed and go home. And she was like, nope, doctor's orders, And I was a fireman. These guys, pretty much toe the line. So I said, all right, what the heck? And my wife said as soon as she pushed that into the portal on the IV, she said, your eyes rolled back and you dropped back on that bed like a stone. You just like you were just instantly killed, And they came in and they were very freaked out. And so they gave me this drug called Narcan right away. And Narcan goes in and wipes out the opiates. And that's the Nubane was a morphine opiate based, and it gobbles it right up. Working with the paramedics, whenever we went to a heroin addict or an opiate overdose, the first thing you did was push Narcan and push
I
the
bet you never
diabetic
thought
meds.
you would be given one.
No, I never did. But I never saw it. I was long gone. And my wife said they gave you a shot of Nubane. They came back in 5 minutes later or so, and they gave you another one. And she said they were really worried, and they put you in the head down thing to get whatever blood you had to get it to your brain and to your heart, and pushed the IVs, and transferred me up to intensive care. And I was hanging on. She said your blood pressure was like 0/40, and or 40/0, excuse me. And yeah, I was just hanging on, and they I hadn't told this before, but in the morning they told me they gave me 11 liters, 11 IV bags of fluids. That's
Wow.
that's crazy. Um, so yeah, so they filled me back up, but I went through this period overnight where it was pretty iffy, and they said in the morning that I was this big triathlete, um, one of those crazies, that's swimming before work and running and cycling hundreds of miles on your days off, one of those kooks. And they said that you were so conditioned that the oxygen that was getting moved around was being used up because your body was really efficient in that way. So I think that paid off. But so I go into my near-death experience. The last thing I remember, I was in the emergency room getting, trying to get my shoes on. And then I was down. So sometime in that night, 1, 2 in the morning, something like that, I left my body. And that was the most amazing experience. I was, and before I go into that, it's, a lot of people say, was it a witness arrest? Did they try to defibrillate you? All these things. And that, my answer is always the same, is no. At some point during the night, my spirit said, this body is not cooperating any longer, and it's time to fly. And, this is what people do with, with the ecstatic dance, where they dance for days, and things like Vision Quest, where they sit in the forest and they don't eat for 3-4 days at a time. They stress the body to the point where it kicks in that automatic trigger where the spirit will fly on all of us. So I was, when the next thing I realized, I was this huge expanded cloud. I was flying through this star-filled realm, all these colored balls. They were incredible colors and energy, and it was like a homecoming. They were just showering me with joy and appreciation and acceptance, and I felt like I was home, and like I'd been let out of a hot, stuffy, dark closet, and I went home, and it was exhilarating, and it felt like some kind of cosmic orgasm. Everything felt so amazing, so exhilarating to the max. And it was just this standing wave of ecstasy. And, when we're in that, and I was flying through these stars. I see them now as orbs because I've learned a lot since my 30s. And, that's our true home. That's our true vibe. It's just this exhilarated, joyous, overwhelmingly joyous being, and infinite. I was this huge expanded cloud, and I felt like there was a cool breeze blowing through every atom in me. And the thing about the cosmic orgasm, the French call the human orgasm, they call it the la petite mort. They call it the little death. And that makes perfect sense because from my experience, when we die, we are blasted home, and it's pure peace and overwhelming joy and exhilarating. There's no words. So anyway, I was flying along, and all these colored stars orbs were all around me and welcoming me, and I'm moving along, and I'm thinking back where I just came from, and I was like, man, what in the hell was that? That was really rough. And and I was saying, I was still me. There was absolutely no change. There was, the voice we all have in our head, and our core, our sense of humor, our core values, our whatever, our vibe. I was still me. It was completely conscious thought. Everything was the same, except I was this other being now, this huge being, and in this magnificent state. I don't know. So yeah, I was flying along, and I was thinking that was really rough. And then I was like, how in the world? This was the very perplexing. How in the world did I forget who I really was? How is it possible that I thought I was this human, this single, this separate, this physical form, and that I had this whole story? I had a resume, and I had a driver's license, and this whole story that defined Bill Letson. How was I tricked? It was like it was a game that I signed up for. And because I was not Bill Letson. I knew all about him. I knew his wonderful wife and his great parents, and all his wonderful his fire bros and friends and stuff. I knew all of it, and none of it mattered. It was like it was an illusion. It was a joke. It was not a real type thing. And that is probably the hardest thing that us human beings have with when we over. And I think this is what ghosts are all about. They're just confused. They've completely stuck in this illusion. So yeah, my big thing was, how in the world did I forget who I really was? And I knew everything. The information was coming in graphs and formulas. It was just flying by. And I was cruising along saying, oh, this is pretty cool. And then all of a sudden I landed somewhere. And this place was solid. It had indirect lighting, had machines there. There were tables and beds and stuff there, and there were beings there. Right in front of me, there were these three dark little beings. They were hooded. They had these robes, and they were short and squatty, kind of dumpy bodies. They looked exactly like that movie Communion with Christopher Walken. He's in this spaceship dancing around with these guys and clowning around with them. They looked exactly like that, except they had these huge smiles and bright eyes. And they were looking at me, and they were saying things like, how was it? What did you learn? What can you tell us? And they were giggling, and I was looking at them like, man, I kind of know you guys, but this is really strange. And one of them turned to the other two and said, he doesn't remember us. And they all giggled like little munchkins. And then
I'm
there's this other guy, and
picturing
he was
Wizard
kind
of
of in
Oz.
charge, but
I'm picturing them little people in
the
Wizard
Wizard
of
of Oz. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, I have a huge story here that goes way beyond NDE, and a lot of what I found in um our real reality is it's really told to us in a lot of these movies. And the Wizard of Oz is a key. You know, we all watched that every year. We got together on a Sunday night, and the whole family watched that movie over and over for years. And it was, it's like it was we're being taught something. Um, but it's in all the movies. And some of them are dark and nasty, and you get to choose the channel, what you're going to watch, or what's going to influence you with our screens. Our screens are very powerful today. So anyway, I was with these guys, and then the tall, wispy guy, he had this chuckle to him, and he had this smile on his face that was from ear to ear, and he had these big, bright eyes, and he looked like he was underwater, like he was like a Gumby or a walking stick, or one of those those big cactus things, Serrano or something like that. And when he came towards me, my throat tightened and my chest expanded, and I thought I was going to break down into uncontrollable crying from love. Just this overwhelming love that was coming from, radiating from this being. And he had the biggest smile on his face. And it wasn't real organized. It wasn't there wasn't like anything was going on. And at some point, being this fireman guy, I said, well, we're going to review my life, and then I'll go on from wherever I'm going next, because I ain't going back there. And the wispy guy, he just cracked up. He just chuckled, and he looked at me and he said, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start? And I'm like, okay, great. And so I told a few stories, no big regrets, no sad stories at all. I've had a charmed, blessed life. And there was a couple of things. My wife wanted this job, this Park Service job. When we were in college, she wanted me to take this summer job on an island, and I overruled her. And I wish I would have given her that, because she was perfect for that. We were going to be rangers in some little cottage on an island off the coast of California, and supposed to count foxes and watch over the place. And people would come by every, I don't know, every 10 days, or they bring a group by or something. And yeah, I'm more mature now, so I would have loved that. So after a while, the big the tall wispy guy, and that's another thing. He was like he was made out of vapor or smoke or something. And when he walked around in this place, he kind of separated in different places, and then those parts of his body would catch up to him again. It was the strangest thing to see. Um, so after a while, he goes, "Okay, that's enough. Time to go back." And I was like, "Go back?" I was just shocked. I was like, "Dude, are you kidding me? I'm not going back there. There's no way." He goes, "Yeah, you're going back." And the three little guys, it's like they were reassigned. They just took off somewhere else in this facility. They had went on to some other task or something, and they were gone. And it was he and I, and he came forward, and I had to take my shot. And I was like, uh, "Look, boss, there's I got lots of friends and stuff, but the only people that are gonna really be hurt is my wife and my parents. But they will get over it. They'll be sad for a couple of weeks. They'll be fine. They're strong people." And he thought that was pretty funny. And he chuckled and he says, "No, you're going back. You have things to do." And he just kind of came forward, and I felt myself going back. I started like dematerializing. The room started just falling apart, and he started to fall apart, and I was dropping away. I was like I was going to another channel. I was going to another frequency. And I really believe that's what we're into here, is that there are these realities and they're all around us. We don't have to fly light years across the galaxy they're right here. And they're just on other frequencies. And so I continued to drop. I could feel this slowing down, and I kind of dropped away into darkness. He disappeared, and I found myself close to my body. And before I got in my body, I got the feeling that I was in a place that was not cool, and we don't want to go there. And it was lonely, and it was dark, and it was scary. And I didn't talk about that for a long time, but when I started telling my NDE story publicly a few years ago, I included it because I think people should know that there are, our choices in our frequency, our choices in our emotions, and our reactions to others and to what happens to us in this world. It has we carry those frequencies. We carry those events or those emotions, those feelings. They're real things in the energetic world we come from. They are solid things, and we get enough of them, and we get held in that place we don't want to be. You got to be really bad to hang out there, I think. But that's, people want to know, is there a hell? I think, and I say, yeah, it is, and it's really close to where we are now. Um, so I was back in my body, and I woke up early in the morning for something like that. And I could see the machines, that I was all hooked up to a bunch of machines, and I could see that they were taking the blood pressure every few minutes. And I noticed it was really low when I started, but it started climbing. It was like 50 over zero and 60 over zero. I kept falling back asleep. And sometime, 6 or 7, and the nurse came by, and I was looking at the machine, and she was like, "You're awake." And she was really happy. And I said, "Yeah, I need to talk to you. This is something's wrong. I'm not supposed to be back here." And she was like, "We didn't know what was going to happen to you. I need to tell the doctor you're awake, because we didn't know what was going on with you." And I said, I go, "Just answer me one question. What am I doing back here? I was home. I was home with my best friends where I belong forever. And as far as I could tell, I had bought the farm. I was pretty sure of that. And um, she goes, well, you were in escrow, but you fell out. And now you're back with us. And so get over it, which is great, good advice. You read these things by the gurus and stuff. They say cut wood and carry water, and get up every morning and do the things that you do in this life to support this life, and head down and keep going because it's a gift. And the low emotions, the hardships, especially in these times that we experience, it's on purpose. We came for it. It's like a roller coaster ride, and we're hitting the bottom, and it's tough here, but you're really grateful for the experience later on the other side. So
You
I
mentioned,
didn't.
I'm sorry, you mentioned graphs and formulas. You saw
Right.
like you saw them like passing by, or
It was like somebody, when you're in college and you have all these binders and all these textbooks and stuff and these pages of all these different classes. It was like those pages were floating in front of me, and they were flying by super fast, and I knew what was on all of them. And yeah, it's just the universe is full of information, and it's all there. When you get into that energetic state, you can, the Akashic Records is a perfect example. Um, it's all there, every breath that everybody takes. So yeah, I saw all this information, and I am a I'm a virtual genius on the other side. But you can't. There's no way you could bring that back. It was overwhelming amount of information. Um, so yeah, and so I got back at work. I took some time to recover. I got back at work and I told everybody. I told all the guys. I said, "Man, this death thing, we got this backwards, completely backwards. It is absolutely a joke that we fear this. It's a wonderful going home." And some guys that were having trouble with their, if they lost a parent or a child was ill or something, they'd come and they'd ask more, and I'd tell them the same thing. I said, this is an absolute joke. Your father didn't die. He just dropped his physical body. He's right here. He's on another frequency. He's all around you. And I tell people that. I said, all of our family, our ancestors, they're all around us all the time, and all our pets are all here. They're just at another frequency. They're out of their physical body, and we're still here pretending we are these people, these avatars, these crash test dummies.
I know when I drowned when I was
So
5, I was just hanging around, running around. I playing with kids in the yard, and I mean, flying over the highway. It was all out of body. Just, I was here. I couldn't hear any sounds from here. I could hear people's thoughts. I could feel their emotions. It was just this
right,
ghost kid running around. But my second NDE was different. It was the tunnel, bright white light, heaven, God, angels, Jesus. I mean it all, but it was completely different 20 years later. But yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, glad I'm talking to a fellow
NDA.
NDEer. Yeah.
And it's funny because
So
I think you said, what the hell was that? That was my first words back in my body in the wheelchair in emergency room. What the hell was that? And I heard another NDEer say it today during her NDEs, like, what the hell was that? And I'm like, this is weird. Like, this is not something you think you're going to say in
yeah,
heaven. What the hell was that?
yeah, yeah. It's a
But we're still
shocker. The
us.
the
We still have our
transition.
personality.
Right. We're still us. I still had the same. sense of humor. You know, I'm kind of a rascal, and all firemen are. And yeah, I had the same sense of humor. And those beings that I met, you know, I spoke to them the same way I would speak to a bunch of guys in the fire station, you know, having a water fight or something. It was light and but the big wispy guy, you know, we'll have all kinds of names for him, but he was in charge, and there
Do
was
you
no
think it,
question he was in charge.
do you think it was God?
Pardon me?
Do you think it was God
Yeah, I think it was somebody in that uh,
capacity?
you know, that chain of command.
Mhm.
I definitely was. I think the reason he chuckled so much is like a father looking at a toddler, you know, and the toddler is walking around the kitchen for his first time and he's knocking into pans and falling down. And that's what it felt like. He was a sweetheart to me and he loved me, but he was entertained at this clueless soul that had just returned and
And yet
you
he's
know
the
hadn't
authority.
really. He was absolutely the authority. It's absolutely the authority.
That's what I experienced my
And
second
you know
birthday.
and we have a lot of these things: the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, and it always comes in threes. It seems, you know, and the physical self, the soul, the higher self, this sort of thing. This the id, the ego, the superego. All these things are saying the same thing. That there's a much bigger version to us, and yeah, there is a God, and maybe it's collectively all of us that's been, you know, we've been parceled down to have these experiences for you know, to grow spiritually. I don't know. You hear all these stories, but yeah, there's a lot more to us than just this physical being that's walking around, you know, trying to make sure everyone knows they're important.
What was it like
There's
when you
way
come
more.
back?
When I came back, when I went back to work, I told everybody,
I
and
mean, when you come back to your body, was you like, did you remember this right away? Did you speak of it right away, or did you
oh
just
yeah,
focus?
yeah. The nurse went and got the doctor, and I told him in detail. Um, my wife came in, I told her in detail. She was writing everything down by then, and my parents came, and I told everything in detail, and I didn't care. I mean, they were looking at me like, "Oh, there's been brain damage. He's lost it," and because that's the story, you know, we have here, and
Had
I
you
didn't care. Uh,
had you heard of
Pardon me?
NDE? Did you hear of near-death experiences then? Did you
No, I
know?
didn't know anything about it. No, I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. I didn't have. You know, there people started saying, you know, you better stop talking about this because people are talking about you, and you know, you're a firefighter, and you know, you're gonna get in trouble. And so I zipped it. About 2 or 3 weeks later, I zipped it. I dummied up um, for 15 years, and I retired in 2010. But I didn't dummy up inside. You know, I read books like Eckhart Tolle, and you know, these guys, they know something. Um, what was her name? The Jill Bolte Taylor. She was the leader, the president of the Harvard Brain Bank, and she had a stroke, and she was caught between these two different worlds. She was still partially in the physical, and but she would have these moments where, you know, I said I was let out of a hot, dark closet and I was this huge expanded cloud. And she said in her book, she said that I was a genie let out of her bottle and I was this giant whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria. You know, we're saying the same thing, just using different um,
Is she the one
terms.
that had
So,
that in her living room and something like fell on her
yeah,
head or something? I hadn't
yeah,
heard of
she
that
had a
one in
stroke.
I hadn't heard of that in years. Forgot about that. Okay.
She's got a she's got a TED Talks thing that lasts, I don't know, 20 minutes. And
Okay.
whenever I watch that last 5 minutes, I always tear up because she talks about that we have two minds. We have the left brain that's here on Earth and the right brain that's connected back to where we come from. And in every moment, we get to choose which mind are we going to be in. Are we going to cut that guy off on the freeway and yell and scream, and honk the horn, or are we going to do something kind and sweet with the situation, with the circumstances? And it's always our choice which mind we're going to live in. And
It's
she has an
interesting.
amazing talk.
It's interesting because I've had a
Yeah,
few times where they've argued with each other. And the first
I'm
time,
having that now.
I think might have been the first time, I'm not positive. No, it happened. Okay. It happened right after my drowning. I was 5 years old. I was standing in front of my grandma's house and I was remembering all of a sudden floating in and out of those houses across my grandma's. And there's one side of my head saying, that did not happen. You did not do that. And I was like, but I remember it. You did not. But I remember I did, and then it's so strange because that's 5 years old. And then at 25, after that NDE, it was months later because I pushed that away because I lost my twins in that NDE. And it all come back. And it was that same argument. It was like, oh my God, it was real. It was not. It could not. I'm like, that's scary when it's that loud in your head arguing.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it
You know
seems
those
cool
in the
now.
old
At the
cart,
time, I thought I'm going crazy. But it's like I had to make a
in those,
choice. What was I going to believe?
that's right. That's right. Which side are you going to go with? And when we were kids, the cartoons, you'd have an angel on one side and a
Mm-hmm.
devil on the other, and they'd be arguing. And that's, like I said, a lot of stuff's it's in our media, it's in our mainstream, telling us who we are. And yeah, that angelic one, that is the right brain that's connected to home, it's connected to love and peace and music and creativity and kindness and all these things that we cherish. And then the other side is facts and figures and who am I? And by golly, I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to stay in charge. Uh, I'm not going to have any, do not question me. And people, they go and they drink ayahuasca. And what that does is that with the shamans, that flips that brain. For a few hours, that right brain is in charge. And the left brain that has been you your whole life is tied and gagged and thrown in the trunk. And the right brain drives. And his answers are only sweetness and kindness. And the left brain, he doesn't go quietly. That ego does not go quietly. This is what gives us all our trouble. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what we're here to do. It's like a game or a puzzle or a maze that we're supposed to figure out who we really are and go with that softer voice. And in fact, when I drank ayahuasca, I had a heck of an evening. I was rolling on the ground and moaning and all kinds of trouble. It's just this waves of uh, fear and anxiety over nothing. I couldn't even put my finger on what was going on. Um, and it was this ego side that we're talking about, this ego side of our mind, wanted to be in charge and was creating all kinds of hell. And the shaman came to me, and I was having all this trouble, and the shaman came to me, and he was so sweet. These guys look like wild Indians, but they're not. They're sweethearts. And through an interpreter, he said, "We are so proud of you. We came for people like you, the people who go into this really powerful pit of despair." And um, all I could do was say things like, "I'm so sorry I'm making such a fuss. I'm making such a mess of the ceremony. And please accept my apologies. And they were just chuckling because they knew the sweet guy was answering them. And but in my head, in the background, it was like, get me out of here, get me out of this jungle, you idiots, the a-hole that we all can be, um, was just ranting and raving in my head. And the shaman said, you're going to have to find, because it'd gone on for hours. And he said, you're going to have to find the courage to surrender to the softer voice. And, you tell a fireman you have to find the courage. Well, he's going to do it. And so they put me back on my, you have a little sleeping mat. They put me back on my mat. I said, I will handle this. And within 10 or 15 minutes, it was pure bliss. Because I went with that softer voice. And that's what we all have to learn in these lives, is to return to that softer voice, and we get back into heaven.
Kind of like performing an
This
exorcism
this
on
might
ourselves.
well that's a really good way to put it. That's what we do, and it takes thousands of lives, for us to come around, I think.
You was talking about movies, Christmas Carol. Part of my NDE was like that. Jesus just come and stood there, and something just like rolled me over right beside him. We dipped down, and just like that was the earth, and it was at night, and there was our trailer we had at the time. My three little boys in there, and we like then all of a sudden the roof wasn't there. It's like we could see down, drop down closer. And I was shown the future, what it would be like if I didn't return. And one of my sons was very, very upset. And I felt his pain and I retracted. And later, years later, I thought, wait a minute, this is like a Christmas Carol where they shown the future. And I was like, this is weird. And you feel like using television, movies, things like that to describe your NDE, it feels like people are going to think you're making it up. Like you've got this from the TV and made up this story, but it's backwards. You're using things to help describe and realizing, like you said, there's so much in movies that like somebody was getting information somewhere when in their creative mode to make this movie, or somebody had some inside information about the afterlife when they made it. Say like Ghost. Like I used to watch Ghost. I thought it was really good. Then after a while, I got thinking about NDEs, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is too real to be just some dumb movie, because there's a lot in
Right
there.
on.
Because I can remember being 5 years old and hanging out and stuff, and what those ghosts are doing, they're hanging out. And then at the end, when they come and get him, you hear so much of what NDEers talk about, of people being there and taking these, oh, it's so beautiful. And, and it's a beautiful death then that when he eventually does go on,
Yeah. Yeah, that man, you and I could hang out, because you just said so much there. The Christmas Carol thing. There again, there's that three thing that I was saying earlier. It's the past, present, and ghost of past, present, and future. And then Marley comes out and he's shackled in chains. The Marley's ghost, and he's held to the earth. He's held in this torment because he lived a life with poor choices, selfishness and greed, and lack of kindness. And he's telling Scrooge, "Don't do what I did." Chris, my cousin I think he's my cousin nephew. He's a actor, and he's in this local thing. And my wife and I just watched that Christmas Carol, and I was telling her, this story is so deep. There's so much here. We're being instructed when we're ready to receive it, when we start, seeing it as, in the old days, they had higher initiates and high priests, and, they held the secrets, and they doled them out when you were ready. And I think this is like a modern day way of doing it. It's on these screens. What was that other movie? Ghost. I have this Kundalini thing, and it's really far along. And if I sit like you see the recliner behind me. I'll sit in that recliner a couple times a day and just let go. And the whole room is fills with this like this purple rolling energy, and then these white folds show up in it. And if you just hang in there and let go into it, um, this is family. They're in the room. They're all around us all the time. Faces come out of these light beings, and they're always young and beautiful and just sweethearts. Um, so yeah, we're in these lives, and it's kind of like an amusement park, and we're in the spook house or the roller coaster or something, and we're getting the crap scared out of us, every day you turn the TV on, and
Sometimes when I
those
can't
those
sleep,
emotions.
I'll just start remembering one of my NDEs. Just remember being in that floating space and looking around, and it helps me relax, go to sleep.
Yeah, that floaty space is real. It's like we I don't know, we energize. That's what I do when I sit still, because when I come back to my body, it takes it used to take a few seconds. It takes a few minutes now to put it back in operation. My eyelids won't work right, and you know, just feels like I have to reanimate this creature. And yeah, that floaty space is real. Yeah, you're fun to
Yeah.
talk to.
And I think you said something about just kind of popping out of your body, or you just how you left it. You
Well, when I
first
sit
left.
still,
No, like when
yeah,
you
when I
died,
when
when
I
you
sit,
first left, how easy it was. I think you
oh
said
yeah,
something just to pop out, or can't
yeah,
remember.
it's I had this, with this Kundalini thing, it's like you're being instructed on how to get come and go. And um, this was a couple of years ago. I had these series of out of the body, and it got to be at first it's really scary, and as soon as you get afraid, you shoot back in, and everything shuts down. But when you let go and you have confidence that nothing will ever hurt you, it's you sort of effortlessly like you peel away. It's like you're peeling off of a back of a stamp. And Dr. Mary Neal, she had that. She's a surgeon, and she died in that
Kayak,
kayaking accident. Yeah, in Chile, and she said she just peeled away from the
like a
boat,
banana.
and she rose.
She said
Yeah,
like two pieces
and
of tape. That's what she said. She's like it was
that's
like.
exactly
Mhm.
yeah, that's exactly what I experienced. The vibrations start, the bliss starts, the colors start, the lights in the room start moving around. And when the vibrations start, it's like, okay, hang on, because Kansas is going bye-bye. And you just peel away. And then it's like you're asleep or something, because everything that was kind of misty and stuff in the room is super sharp. You're with these other beings, and they're very remarkable. They change faces, and so yeah, I'm pretty far along. I'm full-fledged crazy.
I don't
But
control any of my stuff. Like stuff that's happened to me is spontaneous. It'll just come out of nowhere, or whatever it may be. A voice that says,
right,
"Hey, there's something going on up there. You need to go check it out," or somebody's about to die. Go check on them. Are you praying for something? I mean, something that it just comes in, like somebody walking through the front door. It's not that clear, but the voice is, and the presence is. I don't control it. Like I can't like I'll sit here and meditate and do. I don't. Yeah, that's just not me. It's just like it. It has the control,
right,
not me.
right.
So, did you come back with
Yeah,
gifts? I mean, you have the Kundalini, is how you say it, but do you feel like that's a gift from your NDE to be able to? I'm sure you weren't doing that
yeah.
before.
I think the NDE is an invitation to an old soul, that you are, and this is you are right in there. You are probably very advanced. But an NDE is a it's showing you what you are if you're ready to take it in. Um, because I have people call me, buddies call me and they're like, hey, that's crazy stuff you talk about? This happened to me. I was in bed and all of a sudden I wasn't. And, I was at this fire that was, he's a retired fireman. I'm at this fire that happened off the shore, and all these people were, you know, leaving their bodies, and I was in the middle of it. And I didn't know anything about it. And the next morning, the news was all about this fire. And so I tell him, said, yeah, dude, it's an invitation. It's an invitation that you are this incredible being that is everywhere. And if you want to go further, that's cool. And if you don't want to go further because it's a rough ride, um, then that's cool too. Because the universe is in no hurry. There's no such thing as time. And you just continue to do, more and more lives, whatever you want, really. But yeah, it's an invitation. And if you're ready to take the invitation, that's when I think you'll agree. That's when it gets interesting.
And I think it gets
So,
interesting once we allow ourselves to start talking about it. Like I understand, like you, I got to quit talking about it because of my career. And I was that way too. I was an investigator, social worker, counselor. You can't go around talking about those things. So, I just kind of, kept it all in. And then later I thought, I think I can speak my truth now and let the chips fall where they may. So,
yeah. So, that's a good lead into this, what happened to me next, because when I retired, um, you do whatever you want. And I had this sitting around watching a movie one day, Netflix, and then this movie came up and it said DMT, the spirit molecule. And it was about a book by Rick Strassman. And he's a doctor who he injected DMT, which is, the granddaddy of all hallucinogenics, all psychedelics. And we make it in our pineal gland. And when we go to sleep at night, it gives a little couple of drops. And that's when we soul travel. It moves the spirit out of the body. And when we die, there's a massive amount of this DMT that splashes the brain and it rockets the soul out of the body. There's complete separation. And I had this movie and I watched it, and I don't know why I watched it because I hang out with cops and stuff, and nobody does drug stuff. That's the other side of the coin. And I was a firefighter and with medics and hazmat and things like this, and people who cooked drugs and stuff and dealt drugs, they were a problem for us. Um, so they weren't my favorite. It's not my favorite group. But so anyway, I watched the movie, and then a few weeks later, or a few days later, it said, "Why don't you buy this book?" It came up on the computer. You know how it happens, Amazon. And it was that movie. It was the same movie. And so I've never done that. And so I bought this book, um, DMT, the spirit molecule. And when I got around to reading it, chapter 13, 14, and 15, 13 and 14 are called Beyond the Veil. And this is where you have contact through the veil, where things like what you and I have been talking about, where you leave your body and experience the other side. And so what Rick Strassman did is he had 70 volunteers at the University of New Mexico, and he gave them DMT in an IV at different, it's all very clinical and scientific. And then they would be on this powerful experience for 10 or 15 minutes. And then he recorded everything they said when he came back. And most of them were coming back and they were talking about these three little kind of mischievous, elfy guys, and then this tall, wispy guy that was in charge of the operation.
I bet you were jumping up and down
well,
when you read
I
that.
am now, but at that first week, I dropped that book after what the hell? I dropped that book and I walked around for a week and said, what is going on here? I do not have a firm grasp on who I am and where we are. I think I got all the answers. And, I was a fire captain and I retired, and the whole culture tells you you're the man, you're the answer man, no matter what happens. Talk to the captain. And I realized I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about what had happened to me. And a lot of the answers were right there in that book. That we are these, we are these temporary personalities, these containers, and these avatars, and we're in a movie and we're having a good time. We're having a great time. Um, so
Um,
anyway, yeah, uh,
It almost seems
that's what
like
led to that.
we're sent here to develop a personality, to experience all the kinds of things that we can't without a body. Even sickness, the pain of labor, a broken bone, or but there's, a lot of things we do enjoy. And it just, because when we go back, like we say, we're still us. And I think, well, would we have been us if we hadn't been born and experienced and became an identity of who we think we are? I don't know. I lay awake and think of stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun being this is the most fun I've had my whole life because I've realized there's you don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. You don't have to stand up and be right or argue with anybody. You don't have to get the last word. Um, and that's not, the mainstream screens are telling us the exact opposite, that we all got enemies and we got to stand up to them. And no, we don't. We none of that's true. Really, we are all one, and we're all these wonderful beings on the other side. And this.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, it just made me think of when I was working at children's services. One day I come home and I just like finally broke down. I sat on the steps here alone at the house and I said, God, why is she, this one co-worker that was just so mean to clients? She was mean to me. And I was like, why is she getting by with this? Why won't you do something? I'm trying to help children. I finally just let it out. It's something I've been holding in for years. And all of a sudden I heard, like when I said, why don't you get her? I heard it's already been done. And I knew exactly what the voice meant. And I won't say what, but because I don't want people to feel bad. Maybe it's happened to them. But I just, oh my God, oh my God. Like that was done for like what she was going to do in the future. Like something was done to her in the past. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I better be good. Kind of like, Santa Claus, wait for Santa Claus
Right.
to be like, better be good because wow, if that's how the
Right.
world, if karma is real, like you can be punished for something that you haven't done yet, but like the universe knows you're going to do it. And like, dang. So I try to be a good girl.
Yeah.
I don't always succeed, but because I believe, I believe that, like somebody was saying earlier, that, oh, well, if you go out and can kill 10 people, you're going to be just as accepted in heaven as this nun, Mother Teresa or something. And I don't say anything because, I don't, but I'm thinking, I don't believe in that. I think there is justice
Right.
because we have views. And I
Right.
believe everything is recorded. It has to be because when we have those life reviews, how did they know this? And when scenes, both times my NDEs at 5 and at 25, a scene popped up and it was like watching this little movie and I'm interactive in it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. It was like a teaching aid. And it's like, that's high tech. Everybody thinks that the Bible's so old and ancient and so long ago that us people are fools for being Christians. And I realized, I really processed my NDEs how high tech it is also. It is ancient, but it is so far advanced. The telepathic communication, for example. I
Right.
can't just look at you
Right.
to know everything you have to say, but over there you do.
Right. What this lady told me, she said we were talking about the precession of the equinox and that an eon is 24,000 years. And um, And she said, we really don't have anything to worry about because, we just turned it out at 2012, and now it's this ascension, this cleaning up of the Earth's energy, and we're heading back to a silver age and a golden age. And she said, when we start, climbing to the top of that, she said, we won't have any more jails or courts or lawyers or crooked CEOs because everyone's walking around fully portraying their intentions and their feelings and their emotions. Their energy is, a complete signature of everything that they're thinking and that they are is on display for everybody else. And that is the golden age. That is why it's, everybody leans towards sweetness. And that reminded me, I was watching this guy and he was giving a spiritual talk thing. He was awesome. He had a great message. But he had a TV show and he was, he had to kick in a miracle every now and again to hold his audience. And he was talking about some things about him solving crimes and stuff. And right behind him on the wall, this aura, this energy, like this big, like a Michelin tire person blob, just was jumped against the wall behind him, and it was forest green, and it was moving. He was moving, and it was moving, and it was, and this is what I was seeing, and it had this yellow, like darting like lightning. It was bright yellow, and it was going from his head down to its feet, and it was all the time he was talking about this miracle that he, solved this murder case, and the police, he was just telling this story. He wasn't offering any proof or anything like that. And I went and told him, I said, hey, dude, when you were talking about this amazing thing jumped up behind you on the wall. And he goes, well, what color was it? And I told him, well, it was this forest green. It was beautiful. And, you've got something really powerful going on. And he goes, was there anything else? And I said, yeah, there was this, funny you should ask, there was this streak of bright yellow, and it was like electrified. And he goes, that's not good. And he got real quiet and he wouldn't talk to me anymore. And I didn't know what I did. And months later, I saw Edgar Casey. He has this book on deciphering auras. What is the emotions of that person? And it said that the dark green with the yellow streak through it, that was deceit, that was the frequency of deceit. And if you think about the old timers, they used to say that guy's got a yellow streak running down his back, and the man, he was a coward. And if you were drummed out of the cavalry, they paint. Pardon me?
Green with envy. This is something
I
we
guess.
say.
And
Why do
if
we
you
say
were-
green with envy? I don't know.
Yeah, and if you were thrown out of the cavalry for cowardice, they painted a yellow streak down your back, and so everyone could know that you were, dishonored.
And they used to call people yellow, didn't they? Meaning coward.
Yeah, they said you're a yellow belly, whatever. But that's where the old timers could see that stuff because they were more connected to the earth, I think. Um, and that was an amazing thing. So there was three stories there that this woman said, we'll all be able to know what all of us, our intentions are of our character. It's going to be on display for everyone else. And we all know what we're thinking. There's no conversation needed. Yeah, you're right. That's the future. That's the
I'm
future
picturing
human
walking
being.
out of the room and turn around and tell my husband, I heard that. Yeah, like something. I heard that.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
have
you
a
can feel
book?
it, when you go. I have a book. I'm updating it right now. I've got all these people want a copy. I send them a email with a whole bunch of links to stuff that'll keep them busy while I get this thing updated. But yeah, it's called Full Contact Kundalini, and And
Is
it's
it out
about my
now,
whole,
or are
this
you
whole,
getting it ready?
I'm getting it ready.
Okay.
I'm getting it ready. I had it done a few years ago. And then, as you know, this whole spiritual thing is like a process and you have to let it play out. Before you got something to say, because the story's going to
Yeah.
really open up. So,
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
um, yeah, there's you and I talked about the movie thing, and I'm really glad that you were open to that. And something for your viewers, one of the best movies that can really help you is called Groundhog Day. And that's, Bill Murray is stuck in this New England town and he keeps reliving the same day over and over. And he's got all these poor qualities, he's willful and he's selfish. And as these days go by, he learns how to, work the town and work everybody in it and do all these things for selfishly for himself. And he each day is a new life. And that's what this movie is telling us, that with each new day, with each new life, we get to choose through that. What are you going to be in that life? Are you going to be willful and selfish and angry? Or are you going to be kind? And kindness is the key. So he goes through these lives, and near the end, he's halfway through it. There's this scene in the diner, and he goes, "I figured it out. I'm a god. I'm not the god, I don't think, but I I live forever. All these every day I get killed somehow, and or I go to bed, and I wake up the next day with not a dent in the fender, good as new, and I have I have a fresh day to do whatever I want with." And he starts doing all these kind things in the community. He takes care of some little old ladies and helps a kid and takes care of a homeless guy. And he finds the goodness in being kind to others, the incredible joy that comes from that. And um, then near the end there, he gets to move on. He wakes up and it's not the same old thing. And he moves on, and some people picked up on this, and they calculated all the things he does. He learns all these languages, he plays all these instruments, and they figured how much time, how many days did that take? And they came up with 7,000 lives. It was the equivalent of 7,000 lives. And then they ran the question by the producers, and the producer said we were going for 15,000. So it was a real it's a real lesson on how bad we can be. It's normal. It's what we come into life. We are in the beast. We are in the animal that we've taken up residence in, and the beast just wants to survive at all costs. Me. My problems and all this stuff. And when
It
we
makes me
learn,
think of the movie What Dreams May Come, how she goes to hell and he has to
right?
go down and get her. And
Is that I gave this sort of I gave this presentation at the IONS conference in Salt Lake City, the International Association of Near-Death Studies, and I thought they were going to throw me out of there. I said I'm pulling out all the stops,
for
and
what?
for the stuff you and I've been talking about. I
You
thought I'm
didn't
gonna
like it?
no, I thought they were going to,
Oh,
and
okay.
but it was standing room only, and so many people came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you for showing up. Finally, somebody's talking about something that, we're all in this together." And one lady was a film producer, and she goes, "I'm going to go to work on this. I'm going to get some research and put these movies together in a book where people can go, step through this instructions that we're getting, however it's happening." Um, she goes, "You're onto something. These are not uh, these aren't flukes. coincidences. There are no coincidences. We know that.
I
So
was on an NDE panel in Denver, IONS conference, 2017 is my first time, other than an IONS group here local. I spoke at one. That was my first time. And then I was on NDE radio. And then I think it was that order. Yeah. And then but I just read my poems when I went to Denver because I wasn't ready in front of a big audience to talk about my NDE. So I had wrote some poems into my book about my experiences. So I read that, and people actually liked them. But then
of
when I was
course,
to speak at Rally Ions, she says, "No, you're not going to read his poems, are you?" and then she ended up uninviting me because I'm pro-life, but I had already scheduled the next night. After, I was supposed to be at hers on a Friday and then Rally on Saturdays. I went ahead and went to Rally and spoke. That was fun. But I went to Hawaii, spoke at their Ions, and it was in 19. So I might be getting my years mixed up. But I know it was 19, went to Hawaii. So
that place, the you went to Maui, the Maui Ions.
yes.
Yeah, that's a powerful group. I went there early on, and I was flying in. I have all these. When I drive at night, everything's purple. The road looks like it's freshly painted purple, and there's purple and blue swirls on the side of the road. It's just crazy. It keeps getting stronger and stronger. And back then, I'd have to sit for a couple minutes before it came up. But when I flew into Maui, the whole ocean was purple, and it wouldn't stop. I went to the room, and the room was just full of the walls looked like they were made of rubber, and they were moving. And when I went and when I talked at Maui, the people in the room, I was hearing their thoughts, and there's like 100 people. That's a powerful group. And I'd be saying something, and I'd hear something like, "Oh, I had something like that," and I would turn and look at the lady sitting next to me, like, "Uh, did you want to say more or something like it?" But they weren't. Nobody was talking, but I was hearing them. It was really. And at one point I said, "What is going on with this place? I can hear you guys' thoughts. I had the purple ocean. The room is full of spirit beings." And they go, "Silly boy, this is magical Maui."
I didn't get
And
any of that. The only thing weird that happened was I was sitting in the parking lot in the car waiting for time to go in to talk. My phone started making this weird music. And so I took my husband's and I videoed it. Because my phone it has never done it before or since. It was just making this, it wasn't like it was playing it like a song picked up. The phone was like, it was some kind of ringtone music thing I never heard of. I don't know what happened. It was just like, what in the world? I don't know. And
they told me they had that the mountain was right next to uh, where they went, and they said this place is magical because we have this Mount Haleakala, which is like a mountain similar to Shasta. Shasta is incredibly powerful. It's a magnetism in the ore, and our whole world is our whole reality is magnetism and electricity. It's all spin. It's all. Um, so they said, yeah, go up that mountain. And the next day I drove up that mountain, and halfway up, oh man, the whole sky was like glitter, and it was just boiling and rolling. I felt like I had the flu. I had to, they have a ranger at the top, and I was gonna say, man, how do people survive up here? This place is so. And I figured, well, he's just if it was me, if I was a ranger and some old guy came up to me, I would call, the medics and get this guy off the road. So I didn't say anything to him. But yeah, the
we
ancient
rented
Hawaiians.
we rented a convertible and went driving around and stuff. We went to Oprah's house, and a guy was coming out of her driveway, and I autographed a copy of my book, and I gave it to us. Will you give us Oprah? He said, sure. I'm sure she never got it. Probably threw it in trash. But
Oh, that's great. She's got a house there, huh?
yeah. Yeah. It's way on top of a mountain. You can see the ocean. I mean, it's just this little scurfy town, windy road. And then you get up on top of this hill, and it's just her property, and it's a white house. and it feels weird up there. I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe. It's just like I don't know.
Yeah, there's something about Maui. There's something with that. My wife and I tested it. We drove up to Shasta when the Aurora Borealis was really strong. That's an indicator of the solar wind, and I could hardly even walk. I said I couldn't sleep at night. All I saw was electricity, and um, so yeah, we tested it. Those
Did you get to
historically
see it?
the mountain
The what's that word? The colors, you said the word, I can't say it.
Aurora Borealis.
Yeah. Did you get to see it?
Um, well, not on that trip. No, I use that as an indicator of how much solar activity is coming into the planet, and I can because I've noticed when it jumps up 5, 6, 7, um, I gotta lie down because it's just crushed. It's coming right here. This third eye is just it's like my eyes cross. I have to lie down and let it do its thing. Um, and it's like a perfect match because one time a 7 came out of nowhere because it's like a prediction thing. The University of Alaska has this prediction site, and I was talking to my wife and I said, "Man, the walls, it's like I'm in a cartoon. The walls are flexing and it's just colors pouring through." And I said, "I'm really disabled." And she goes, "Well, it just jumped up to a 7." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm really glad you said that because I thought I was losing it." Because it passes, it calms back down and then you're normal till it spikes again.
What is it?
But it's the energy coming from the sun. It hits the earth and it mixes with our magnetic Mother Earth, the magnetism of the earth, and it creates this big spike in prana. The Native Americans called it Great Spirit, but it's just this really powerful energy that if you're opening up to it, and which we all do eventually, you can, it really affects you.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
we, yeah, when I look in a blue sky, I can I can get along pretty good most of the time. Um, Normal and stuff like that. I'm really good at it. I've gotten a lot better at it. But if I sit and look at a blue sky, I see like glitter. And I've come to believe these are souls. This whole universe is made up of conscious beings. And we're one of those, but we're pretending to be a human for a while, for these great lessons. And so I see this glitter and it's folding and flowing um, and it's green and purple. If you mix green and purple light or paint or whatever, it makes blue. And I know this sounds weird, but I can't really claim this as my own because his name was, let's see, he was a very popular in the 30s and 40s, Wilhelm Reich. Yeah, Wilhelm Reich. He was really had millions of followers, and he said that the blue sky is because the purple and green, purple is the crown chakra, and that's the connection to the divine, and green is the heart chakra, and um, so what's pouring in from the universe is divine love, purple and green, and you can look at it and see it in the aurora borealis. So if you go up to the Arctic Circle, you can see it, but it's everywhere. And just looking into a blue sky and letting go, I see the swirling purple and green. And, after it goes for a while, you get the white gold waves, and then you see these grids, very clear, very, intelligent looking grids. And, they say we're in a simulation or a hologram, and it's all being like we're in a big movie.
It
And
seems like whatever we experience on the other side, whether it's telepathic communication or like stuff you saw or whatever, it seems like it comes back with us in a small way, like a residue, to where we have this added insight, like the telepathic communication. No, we're not reading minds, but we sense more than what we did before about what
yeah,
people's thinking, or even, say spirit spoke to us on the other side. Well, they can still speak to us sometimes. Or like you see actual spirits, and I haven't very often, but when you
yeah.
do, you do.
And mostly, a lot of folklore and stuff like that. It's like these things are scary. These are ghosts or mean spirits or something like that. And when you clear out that fear of the unknown and nothing can harm us, we already know our physical body is going to die and somebody's going to have to do something with it, but nothing can harm us. And we are eternal. Um, and once you say, I'm down with this, then it becomes much easier for those things to come in because, fear is the brakes. Fear is what keeps us here. Like Marley's ghost is those low vibrations, all those shame and guilt, everything that's a component of fear, and that's what was holding him to the earth. Yeah,
Yeah.
all these stories.
I've been watching your dog in the background.
Yeah, he's cool. He wants to. There's a little bit of light left. He wants to
My
do his
cat's
thing.
laying right here. You can't see it's right in front of my laptop. I had to move my keyboard. I always had to sit on it.
I told my wife about this that this was a few years ago. It's been about 5 years where I really went over the edge. I think after this thing happened, and I told her, when I sit still, sweetie, when I look at a white wall, it only takes a few minutes, but it comes up and it's this swirling energy. It's pushing all of us. It's pushing me around, and we can all feel it when we're ready to. And she was having trouble with that, and I asked for help. I asked the other side. I asked the Great Spirit or Jesus or those guys that I saw in my NDE. I said, "Hey guys, can you help me out with this one?" And when I woke up in the morning, the first thing I said was Aurora Borealis. And I go, where did that come from? And then I sat up and I said it again. Kind of not something I was trying to do. And I went to her and I said, "You know anything about this Aurora Borealis?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, that's like something cool. I want to do that." And I'm like, that's like a tourist thing, right? And she goes, "No, it's like really something really cool." And so I said, "Let's do it." And we checked when the prediction was that we're going to be strong. And we flew up to the Arctic Circle like 2 weeks later and got on dog sleds and underneath that beautiful purple and gold waves and curtains of energy, that divine love coming from creation. And we got underneath it, and the whole sky just opened up, and it was every color. It was shooting down in incredibly powerful.
I'd love to see it.
And we were laying in the snow just because you couldn't, you can't stand there and your neck is, and the guys we were with said, "Lay down." And because we had these suits on, it's like 40 below. And she had tears running down her eyes and it's freezing. And she looked at me and she goes, "What is that? What is that?" And I said, "Sweetie, that's what I see." I said, "Everything that you can imagine about creation and about God, it's all real.
Mhm.
And you're looking at it." And boy, that got me some mileage. I'll tell you that. We we talked about that every day for a couple of years. And she started off with, "What was that?" And I'm like, "Sweetie, it's all around us. We don't know it anymore." And and that's cool because we're having a hell of an adventure, believing we are separate and we are lost souls and nobody cares about us. This is our, it's our amusement park. We're having these adventures, all of us.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's
So
been very interesting. Enjoyed our
likewise,
conversation.
likewise, we can hang out anytime. I'll buy dinner.
Okay. Where do you live? What state you in?
I'm in California on the Central Coast.
Ugh. I'm in Ohio. I had a guest one day and he said, "Oh, I'm in California. Don't be jealous." Talking about the weather. It's like, I'm not jealous of California. It's like people in Ohio, it's like California, New York is like, oh no. I don't know. There's some
Yeah,
country
Ohio's
song
cool.
about if I don't know what it is. If it's New York, if heaven ain't a lot like Dixie, I don't want to go.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, you don't want to
Okay.
be here now. We got a storm coming in. We've just had three, and we've got a storm coming in now that's going to be worse than all of them. And man,
Wow.
you might not see me again.
That's
It's
unusual for you guys, isn't it?
yeah. Well, the winds and the trees are coming down and stuff, and I'm going to sleep. I'll be in my clothes tonight, and we're out in
It's
the country.
38 here. What is it there?
Oh, it's probably 50, but
Okay.
but tonight, like the wind starts blowing, and we got animals and stuff, and I
Oh,
just stay dressed. I stay dressed by the fire, getting ready to respond because it's going to be touch and go this next two days.
is it
We'll
hard being
see.
a retired fireman when there's emergencies and you don't get to go
No, it's
anymore?
awesome.
You don't have to go.
Oh no, no,
You don't
thank you.
miss it. No more ladies
No,
with flu breathing on you.
yeah, I've done I did my time. I loved every shift, and I never, uh, you know, backed away from anything. And I'm lucky I got out of it. That's dangerous work, man.
Well, I learned a new term, circling the drain.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to shock your audience.
No, it's funny. I think it's funny. All right, and people don't get me why I laugh at death and stuff. I had a guy on. It was dead in a body bag, and when I introduced him, I was laughing. I was like, "You was dead," and somebody commented, "That's nothing to laugh about." Why not?
Yeah, no, it's not. None of it is serious. The other side has a great sense of humor.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Keep
Thank you,
warm.
Peggy.
Bye bye.